to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It was a wild conference championship weekend, and to break everything down is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you on this cold but sunny Monday afternoon?
I'm doing great. You know, the Chiefs let the Bengals go to the Super Bowl, so my Rams pick can hit. So it's all good, man.
It's just the fact of this sentence that I'm about to say blows my mind. The AFC representative for the Super Bowl is a team the Cleveland Browns beat twice. And in one of those games, just completely manhandled and blew out.
Yeah.
It is a weird season, and that's kind of where I want to start. I remember sometime in the middle part of the season, we talked about how crazy the NFL season had been and why not the Browns. And we should have taken that into account with Cincinnati. And for a lot of bettors moving forward, I think we're going to have to give more credence to the teams that make late runs. We saw both number one seeds fall in each conference. We saw Tampa and Kansas City fall. And it looks like those teams that make big runs are probably bets we're going to have to be making moving forward. I mean, neither LA or Cincy were in the lead in their division a month ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate statement to make. I would feel better about it if I felt the Cincinnati Bengals won any of the 3 playoff games they played, other than their opponent losing the game. That would make me feel better about it. But I do agree with you.
But I think with
a month and a half
variance,
ago,
we'll see more of that.
Yeah, but like you said, a month and a half ago, the national media, local media in LA, maybe Matt Stafford is just who he was in Detroit. The Cardinals are running away with it. The Rams have made all these moves. What are they going to do if they don't go on a run? And now here we are.
I know that the NFL is thrilled to see this Super Bowl matchup. I think they're really happy. You have a team that's been pretty bad for a long time in Cincinnati, finally getting into another Super Bowl. And it's also the way these two teams are built. Cincinnati's been primarily built through the draft with some signings here and there, but they haven't been extravagant. And then you have the Rams, who have just gone completely all in on this season. And the NFL's got to love that, because that tells teams that there are a variety of ways to compete in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think, you hit it right there on the head. Like, there are so many ways to build your team right now, so many ways to get better. But I do want to say, I do want to give the Rams a little credit, because while they haven't had a first round draft pick, till 2026 or something insane like that.
Funny.
They have done a great job. They have done a great job on the second day of the draft, building pieces, and kudos to the Bengals. I am not going to go back on anything I've said about the Bengals for the last 2 months. I'm not going to change my statement. I'm just not, except kudos to Evan McPherson. I can't wait to watch this kid miss a field goal. Doesn't matter when or where it happens. I'm going to jump up and down for joy, because I'm already tired of his ugly face.
Yeah, this was a worst-case scenario for Browns fans, because we have our in-state, in-division rivals going to a Super Bowl to play the team that the wide receiver we just don't want to hear about anymore is on. And he's and I guess just a quick note on OBJ. It's much like Antonio Brown, and I hate it. I hate that they acted like complete selfish assholes, and their teams, the Browns have said nothing but good things about OBJ, and OBJ just keeps finding ways to get himself in the news and say bad shit about the Browns. So the fact that he got what he wanted and he's still talking shit like an asshole tells you everything you need to know about OBJ. He's a me-first guy. It was never going to work here because he wants to play in the big city so that the media will follow him around everywhere he goes. And you know what? He's going to succeed in it. He's succeeding with it, and it makes me sick that he acted outrageous and got what he wanted.
Yeah,
because more
absolutely.
guys. This is just going to lead to more guys doing this shit.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I think karmically he'll have another Antonio Brown moment like Antonio Brown has had.
Well, probably, because it always ends poorly with OBJ.
Yeah, but I do agree. I do agree with your statement that as the season is going to get longer now, you're probably going to see just about every year, you're going to see a team have the start that the Cardinals had and have the finish the Cardinals had.
Yeah, that team. There's going to be 2 or 3 teams like that all year, and then there's going to be the teams like Tennessee that they're top level teams in their conference, maybe first or second tier, that's going to get an injury but still somehow find a way to be good depending on how good their conference is. But I do think there's something to be said for the fact that the NFC West and the AFC North were the 2 best divisions in football by my account. And I don't think it's a surprise that the representatives in the Super Bowl reflect that.
No, but I also think with that too comes from the fact that neither one of these teams at any point ran away with their division because they were playing in the 2 toughest divisions.
Yeah, and if you want to say the AFC West was a little tougher than the AFC North, I mean, we can argue that, but then that means that either way, it still proves the point that it seems like you need to play in a tough conference, and winning a division, and winning a tough division means a lot more than being Tennessee or Dallas and dominating a weak division.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree.
Okay, let's just get into these games. So the Kansas City Chiefs are up 21-3. The Bengals finally get a touchdown to cut it to 21-10. And I texted you, are we even surprised if Mahomes marches down the field and scores a touchdown? And they had the play at the goal line, they missed it, and Jimmy, that just started the snowball downhill, and they just really never recovered. They only put up 3 points after that. The offense looked disjointed. This was one of those games that while I was watching it, all I kept thinking was hearing Robert Downey Jr.'s voice in my head going, "You never go full Andy Reid. You just never go full Andy Reid."
Yeah, I mean, it was so weird, and we talked about it. We've talked about it a couple times coming down the stretch that as great of a job as Andy Reid has done with the Kansas City Chiefs, it doesn't just forgive the coaching malfeasance he did in Philadelphia at times, and that really, really showed its head in this game. Like, I guess with the way Patrick Mahomes played last week, I guess I can understand going for the touchdown at the half, but even me, who thinks pretty much every time you kick a field goal or punt the ball, it's being a coward, that was the right spot to kick the field goal, because then you're up 3 full touchdowns.
Well, that felt a lot like the Red Right 88 play that we still lament here in Cleveland, where it's, if your first read isn't there, just throw it into Lake Erie. And for some reason, he didn't just throw it through the back of the end zone, because if he does, they probably have enough time to kick that field goal. Yeah,
exactly. No, they would have. And Patrick Mahomes just made a mental error, and then they never recovered. And then, somehow Zach Taylor and the middle of the league Cincinnati Bengals defense chose to do what, somebody else on this show blasted me for suggesting the Buffalo Bills do, and actually fucking cover people running down the field for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that most of the second half they played with 8 guys in coverage. And it was so reminiscent of the Philadelphia Eagles teams, where the Bengals were saying, please, give the ball to Jerick McKinnon, give it to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who were both running the ball pretty well, and they just refused to do it. And then it kind of felt like immediately Patrick Mahomes got a little PTSD from the Super Bowl last year, because it seemed like he started dipping out of the pocket and evading pressure that wasn't even there yet.
Well, that Cincinnati defensive front was finding ways to get pressure on him, and that secondary was really holding up. And I just, when we talk about Andy Reid, you think screen game, end arounds, coming up with unique ways to get the ball into his best player's hands, and all they were doing was dropping back.
Yeah.
And they were just dropping back from shotgun passes and trying to get the ball downfield, and it looked like they reverted to what they were doing at the earlier part of the season when they regressed.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
And I don't know why they didn't try to mix in more runs. They ran the ball effectively. They ran the ball 24 times for 139 yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
it was really weird.
So there was the one drive there was the back-to-back drives in the third quarter where you and I both feel like the refs kind of took over the game.
They did.
And I still don't understand how Cincinnati players shoved a Kansas City player and they picked up the flag. Like, that blew my mind. There was the late hit could have been called on Hardman, but they were given the game pretty loose. There was like Cincinnati, I think it was it Higgins? Higgins tried to make a one-handed catch, and the reason he had to make a one-handed catch was because the defender was just grabbing his arm. Yeah. So there was just a missed pass interference there. There was a missed pass interference on the Pringle pass on third down, which is the drive that really cemented Kansas City's problems moving the football. And it's just like, I don't like blaming the refs, and Kansas City certainly had plenty of opportunities to win this game regardless of those calls, but as an out, like, watching these games, there was such a huge difference between how the referees called the AFC game and how they called the NFC game.
Yeah, it really, I mean, and that drive was just, I mean, it's sort of like, you know, I text you about, like, we on this podcast, we've talked about it more than other places I've heard. I mean, some other people talk about, but we don't understand what the NFL is doing with player safety, because it appears the only time they care about player safety is with taunting. Like, we only care about protecting your feelings, not your physical body.
Yeah, they did make the one call on OBJ.
They did. But when a guy fair catches for a punt,
oh yeah, that was the other one,
and gets halfway tackled, and there's no flag thrown, to me, like, that's inexcusable. You have to be fired. You can't. You're
Hardman
right
acted a little.
You don't get to be an umpire in the NFL anymore.
Hardman did overact on that a little bit, but still, the rule is you're not supposed to be able to hit them, and he clearly hit him. He didn't hit him hard, but he still hit him.
Like, and I understand when they don't call it for incidental contact, but that guy put his arms around him like he was going to tackle him, and then was like, oh shit, he actually fair caught it, and then let go, and there was no flag. And I had a problem with that, and then that play was immediately followed up by not throwing the flag on Hardman on the sideline, which in the same drive was where the offensive lineman pushes the guy, they throw the flag and pick it up.
Well, then there was also the fourth down the Chiefs went for early, where the ref's there. Like, he's on that line looking right at the running back, and he spots the ball a half yard short.
Yeah.
Like, that's obvious. Like, it was plain as day that he had gotten past the, I forget which hash mark that was, but he had clearly gotten past the hash mark, and they pulled it back a half yard from there. And I mean, they ended up changing it, but isn't this why we have the sky judge on the game? Yeah. Like, hey, you spotted that a half yard short. Just move it up, first down, keep it moving. But no, we got to have another 4-minute break so we can play more commercials.
Yeah,
it's these obvious calls that they miss that really grind my gears. But let's move away from the refs a little bit, because Cincinnati did take advantage of everything Kansas City gave them, and Joe Burrow was mostly good in this game, but he did have a stretch where he threw the interception. He tried to throw another one, and he still made the plays he needed. He made some nice plays with his feet, which was something that they mixed in a little more, and I would imagine that they're going to mix that in next week too.
Well, they're going to try to mix it in next week, but he ain't getting away from Von Miller and Aaron Donald like he did the Chiefs' defensive front.
Yeah, like, they almost had him, twice that he skirted away from.
And I'm going to, I'm starting to feel like if you took 1990s NBA basketball, you took that whole era and you transplanted it into today's sports world, Michael Jordan would not nearly be beloved as he is. Like Patrick Mahomes got shit on after that game for playing pretty much the exact same way he played against Buffalo, with the exception of the end. But here's my thing with Joe Burrow. Like, Joe Burrow only made one mistake, actually made two mistakes, but the guy dropped the second one. But even on that drive where he did all the scrambling and all the cool shit, everybody's like, Joe Burrow, Joe Ice, Joe Cool. It was such a good drive. He got to the 34-yard line. Like, they had one drive all day that went for a big gain, and that was on the busted screen pass that Perrine took for the touchdown. That's not going to be enough against the Rams defense to beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. It shouldn't have been enough to win this game. Like, they got crossed the only other time they got crossed the 30-yard line was when their defensive lineman got an interception on the 26. Like, until the overtime period, I got to give them credit for that, but the Chiefs had given up at that point, unfortunately, for the Chiefs.
Well, Cincinnati had that really nice drive in the third quarter that took, I forget exactly how much time, but it was the third quarter, and then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, there's only like 5 minutes left in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, but even that drive down there where the Chiefs had to kick the field goal, Patrick Mahomes once again started scrambling before he needed to. And it was weird because last week against Buffalo, he was perfectly fine going forward and picking up yards, and it was like he didn't want to do that in this game. He wanted to just throw footballs downfield. I don't know what happened to him in the second half. It was really weird, but
it was almost like it came. They were playing within what the defense was giving them early, and it seemed like he wanted to hit him with. It was like a fight where the one fighter's just trying to the one big punch. Yeah. And they can't quite hit it, and it gives the other guy a chance to get back into it. And that seems like what happened here. And then they just kept trying to hit that big punch, and they just couldn't do it. And then they were helpless.
Yeah, it was really weird to me. But I'm not gonna change what I've said the last 2 weeks. The Bengals are not going to win the Super Bowl with the way the offense is played. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to beat the Rams defense and the Rams offense with 55-yard field goals. You're not going to do it. I don't believe it. I can't believe you beat the Chiefs doing it, but I refuse to believe you're going to do it to my Rams. It was just a nice way for the universe to guarantee that my plus 1,200 bet that I made on the Rams to win the Super Bowl at the start of the year hits, and I get a really nice February payday. That's all this is about, bro.
The one thing that also really stood out to me as we transition to the NFC game, Cincinnati was able to control the line of scrimmage, rush the passer, and cover on the back end. And that's what both San Francisco and LA were able to do. And something we hear a lot of Cleveland fans say, you've said it, I've kind of been on board with this, but I don't think linebackers really matter in the modern NFL when it really comes down to it. And it doesn't mean that they don't matter at all, but I think you have to find linebackers that can, kind of be more like Owusu Koromora. Like, they got to be able to tackle running backs, but they also got to be able to hang with some of these tight ends that are fast and not get lost in coverage. And that just seems like, man, Cincinnati was able to pressure Kansas City, and that really got them off their game. And we saw the same thing between the Rams and the 49ers. There was a lot of pressure on those quarterbacks, and they struggled to keep any consistency. And we've said Jimmy Garoppolo's going to throw at least one interception, and he threw a really bad interception. I mean, I know he's kind of getting thrown down, but you can't just throw that up for grabs. You got to give your team a chance on fourth down to do something. And Stafford threw a really bad pick, but he came back and was good late, where Garoppolo was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford did enough. I mean, I'm not, he was my pick for a lot of awards this year. The Rams were my Super Bowl darling because I really felt like just replacing Matt Stafford with Jared Goff made you a Super Bowl contender and a possible Super Bowl champion. But then Matt Stafford transformed into Jared Goff on that ball that he threw that Tart dropped. Like, that was horrible. Like, Jefferson and Kupp were both open, and you threw it short in between both of them. Like, that was some Jared Goff shit. So that was really weird to me. But I don't understand how people, and I'm probably specifically talking to Browns fans here, I don't know how people could watch the second half of that game and think Jimmy Garoppolo is an upgrade over damn near any quarterback in the NFL.
Well, I'll just go one further on that. There are a lot of Browns fans that think the Browns are a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl, and that's why they want to make a move off of Baker. Just as any team that thinks they're a quarterback away from the Super Bowl, why would you go after Garoppolo? He's on a team with an amazing defense that has playmakers around him, and he couldn't even get to the Super Bowl. So, like, everything is right for him there. So I don't understand how anybody thinks Garoppolo's a guy to take a team over the top when he's shown that he's not that guy.
No, I mean, but kudos to the Rams defense. Unlike, Jimmy Garoppolo has actually played well against the Rams recently because the Niners were able to run the ball so effectively that it made play action game, max protect routes, guys wide open, making Jimmy G look good.
Yeah,
and Aaron Donald
he actually had the highest QBR of the 4 quarterbacks this weekend.
Yeah.
When you look at his stats, they're not terrible. He was 16 of 30 for 232, 2 touchdowns and a pick. But when you just zero in on the fourth quarter and those last 2 drives, he just did nothing.
Exactly. I mean, Aaron Donald made it perfectly clear in late in the third quarter, fourth quarter of that game, you cannot run the ball anymore. If we lose this game, it's going to be because Jimmy Garoppolo finds guys open downfield, because they even started defending the screen pass game well too. And they took that away to where he had to throw the ball downfield. He tried to get all of his wide receivers killed multiple times in the game with passes that he shouldn't have thrown. Even the touchdown to Kittle, he tried to overthrow him. Kittle made a nice catch. It just, the 49ers, like, I know it sounds crazy, and you are not wrong with what you've said, and they gave up so many assets to get Trey Lance. Like, I feel like the 49ers are an Aaron Rodgers away from the Super Bowl. Like, that's what I feel like with their team. Like, I feel like the 49ers, if they could get somebody like Matt Stafford, this 49ers team could be Super Bowl bound. But they gave up so much to get Trey Lance, and I never thought Trey Lance was the guy. So you're depleted on assets. So I don't know what you do, because I don't think you can just let Jimmy G walk.
Do you think they thought they would be able to trade Jimmy G and recoup some of those picks? Because I think that was their plan. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. Is Houston going to try and make a run at him? Like we'll get to the Tom Brady stuff here in a minute, but, you know, if Tom Brady does actually retire, does he wind up going to Tampa and getting carried by that team?
I mean, it's possible. It's certainly possible. But I think they know they can't have the kind of comeback they had against the Rams with Jimmy G at quarterback. But I just don't – I mean, I guess if you're the 49ers, you just say, well, next year's the Trey Lance year, and we see maybe he's got some Joe Burrow magic in him. But I just think it's a big mistake. And I think the 49ers are in a rough spot because they've got a team that just needs a quarterback who can make a couple plays in the fourth quarter, and I don't think they have that guy on the roster.
Yeah, so let's give some love to the Rams here. This game was never really a blow. I mean, San Francisco was up 10 in the third, and the Rams had to put 13 in the fourth to come back, but it did feel like we were just waiting for the Rams to make that comeback. Even with Higbee out of the lineup, they were able to get Blanton in there. He had 5 catches for 57 yards. He was a nice sort of third piece that they could target. But this game was about Cooper Kupp and OBJ, man. They played really well, and I'll give OBJ his credit. He is a really good number 2 wide receiver. But the catches that he's making and the things that you're seeing him do, he's not special anymore. He's not making any spectacular plays. He got that every time they run that quick screen with him, like he can get a couple of yards, but he's not busting anything big. But that's all they need him to do because Cooper Kupp's amazing. I mean, he got 2 touchdowns in this game, 11 for 142. OBJ went for 9 for 113. That's got to have Rams fans excited.
Yeah, and I think, you know, not a lot of places you can tune in other than No Broken Legs to hear 2 guys actually talk about how we don't think Kyle Shanahan is that good of a head coach. I've been fortunate enough. I've been able to watch all the playoff games with my father-in-law, Kevin Gary. We've had a nice time watching the games. And they're in the third quarter when they were up 10 and they chose to punt, and the 49ers chose to punt on 4th and 2. To me, that showed, A, Kyle is not the guy, and B, he's not the guy because he knows Jimmy G is not the guy. You cannot punt there.
I don't know how – That really was a big turning point because it was 4th and 2, and that was right at the end of the third quarter because they let the quarter end. Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh, they're going to turn around and punt this because they don't trust Jimmy G, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and that's where they lost the game. So I'm going to start there. I just, you know, we've questioned Kyle Shanahan, you know, how sometimes you can be such a great play caller, but you know, you were still raised in an old school NFL household. I don't think you get analytics as much as other people think your young face gets analytics because You screwed your team up there. You didn't even have to. You could have just put Deebo Samuel quarterback and snapped him the ball, let him do whatever he wanted to. Like, there were a lot of options there.
No, they could have just ran the Tennessee Titans play from the week before.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen teams do that all the time. When you like during the regular season, somebody will run a trick play, and like usually in the next week or two, you'll see somebody else run it.
Yeah, but punting there was the wrong decision, and it gave
the Rams life. Yeah.
It gave the Rams life. They used it to their advantage. Cam Akers kept getting yards when he needed to, but like you said, OBJ did a good job. I'm not going to beat on OBJ, but for Blanton to step up in the Tyler Higbee role and still perform, my boy Van Jefferson did his job, but Cooper Kupp is just phenomenal. A lot of Twitter NFL is deeming him white rice, and I love it. He runs such crisp routes, and he fought for yards when they needed extra yards, and it was just really impressive. Like, I thought the game was over when that ball bounced off of Tart's hands. Right before then, I thought it was over, and then I thought, come on, Stafford, you can come back from that, and he did. And I feel great for Matt Stafford. He's getting a chance to change his legacy, change his thought. But this offense is exactly what Sean McVay wanted this offense to be. I wish it was Robert Woods out there instead of Odell, because I don't think these games would be as close as they are, because Robert Woods is still explosive like Odell used to be. But kudos to Sean McVay for what they've done, what their offense did, their defense. But, I mean, to me, it was their defense, because they had been bullied by the 49ers offensive line. They had been bullied by the 49ers in general on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They didn't let that happen this time. They kept it close, and they got the job done. And now they're going to the Super Bowl with the chance to win the Super Bowl. I wish I could say at home, but it never feels like a home game for them. So I don't know what that crowd's going to look like, what that's going to be like. But I can't wait. I can't wait to watch how this ends, because I think you hit it on the nose where, there are so many teams that value that first-round draft pick like it is gold. And then you think that last year the Oakland Raiders had two of them, and it was Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett.
Yeah, well, we've had that here in Cleveland many a time. Brandon Reed and Trent Richardson. And then somehow that's not the worst one, because there was Johnny Manziel and Justin Gilbert. Yeah, but I just appreciate the way the Rams are like, yeah, first-round draft picks are incredibly important, but it's still, you don't necessarily know. If I can trade a first-round draft pick, a couple of them, and get Matt Stafford, who I feel like I know who he is and what he can do and how he can upgrade my team, that's better than running it back with Jared Goff and drafting some other defensive player or some other playmaker to put around Jared Goff when Jared Goff isn't the answer. Like, they knew what was holding them back, and they took care of it. And I think that's the issue the Rams are going to have, because I don't think Trey Lance is the answer. So I think the Niners are just going to have this group of guys that are primed for a Super Bowl run that don't have a quarterback to make it happen, which I think sucks for them. But I'm just happy for the Rams. I like it when front offices are aggressive. They go out and get the pieces they think they need to win, and then those pieces come up big, because there was a time there in the second half of that game where the 49ers were really trying to establish the run. It looked like they had something going, and Von Miller broke through and made an absolutely huge tackle, and it re-energized the defense. Like, okay, we're good. Let's go. Let's keep this run game down. Let's make Jimmy G beat us, because it can't. Damn, Jalen Ramsey almost had my Rams touchdown defense that I bet on, but that's okay. But just kudos to the Rams for going to the Super Bowl. I love it. Let's move on. We'll have plenty of time to talk about Rams, Cincy, and I know a lot of Rams fans, and as bettors, we should really be looking at that Rams defensive front against that Bengals offensive line. That just looks really tasty, so that's a little preview for what we'll be talking about when we preview the Super Bowl. There was big news over the weekend for quarterbacks that then got recanted, and apparently Tom Brady's going to retire. He won't be making that official until after Friday, when he gets the rest of his guaranteed money. Jimmy, I'm going to put my conspiratorial hat on. I think Giselle leaked this, and I will tell you why. I think Tom Brady wants to keep playing football, and Giselle put her foot down and said, no, you're retiring, and we're going to be a family. And I think she leaked this ahead of what was going on with Tom and the rest of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to make sure that this happened. This is a conspiracy. I have no evidence of this. I just think that's what happened because Tampa Bay didn't leak this. Tom Brady didn't leak this. None of the business people around him would have leaked this. But this had to come from somebody that was reliable enough as a source to actually run with something like that. So that's what kind of why I think Gisele, if it's not her, then fine. I mean, it could be somebody lower down in the Tampa Bay organization that knows that he's holding off until after Friday when he gets his money. So that is a possibility too. But just as conspiratorial things go, that's mine for this.
I like that idea, and I don't necessarily think you're wrong, and I don't know who leaked it, but I think Gisele might have just made herself an unhappy home. She might have to come clean if she was the one to leak it, because could this just be another chip on Tom Brady's shoulder? Like, man,
this report's gonna look hilarious if Tom Brady comes back and plays football next
man,
year.
everybody is just, man, are they really all this ready to get rid of me? They're all really this ready to just turn over to these new young guns who couldn't throw for more yards or more touchdowns than I did this year. I almost created another great comeback. If I had a Patriots defense behind me, I'd be going to another back-to-back NFC championship games, and everybody's just giving me my roses before I even say I retire. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Tom Brady comes out Friday and says, "Nah, I'm going to run it back one more year." And then then Gisele's got to say, "But I was like, I agree with you. Wherever the leak came from, Tom Brady's probably already hired 6 private investigators to find out where the leak came from, so he knows who to put up on his bulletin board when he goes and wins another Super Bowl for Tampa next year." Like, it was just so weird to me because I thought it was crazy. And, we talk about it a lot. It's about narrative. It's about clicks. It's about moving traffic to your site, to your paper, whatever. But it was amazing that every single large national sports outlet was willing to run with the story, even after Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, Tom Brady's dad, Tom Brady's agent, Tom Brady's business managers all come out and say, "Guys, Tom hasn't made up his mind at all of what he's going to do." And they just kept running with it, which I thought was really weird. So I guess they all really do think it's just a formality that he's probably just waiting for his money.
That's the media environment, though. I mean, that's just the media environment. It doesn't matter if it's actually sourced. Jimmy, remember, Aaron Rodgers is playing for the Denver Broncos in the 2021 season. This is a done deal. We heard it last April. He's going to be a Denver Bronco. Oh, yeah, wait, no, he's going to be a San Francisco 49er. Oh, wait, actually, that was all wrong. He's just going to be a Green Bay Packer.
Right.
So this is the media environment, and you have to, not just as fans, but as bettors, we have to be aware that everything that is being talked about the most in the media isn't exactly true or always is true. There's a lot of varying degrees of it, and this is talk radio. This is a boom for talk radio because it gives them something to talk about, and that's a lot of what we see happening a lot, where one media organization that may or may not be reputable just throws something out there and then everybody runs with it, citing that one source. And if it doesn't come true, nobody's really checking any of this stuff on the back end. So if they're wrong, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Nobody's checking. So we just
I really before this report dropped, I would have thought it was 85-15 that retires. Now I feel like it's 65-70 that he retires, because it just feels like where Tom Brady goes, sorry guys, I know you were all ready to get rid of me, but Gronk said he'd come back one more year. I already got the Bucks. They're going to re-sign Chris Godwin. Everybody's going to get healthy. We're going to run it back, and we're going to go to the Super Bowl. It wouldn't surprise me now. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because he threw the ball really well. Because up until that moment, I thought he could say, "Hey, I played great in my last game in the NFL. This wasn't like the throwing the interception in the Titans game to lose."
And he's gonna be second in MVP voting probably.
Yeah, I could see him being like, "It wasn't my fault we lost. I did my job. I'm gonna go off into the sunset." But now I could see him being like, "All right, back in the gym. Here we go. Like, it wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Let's wrap up by last week. I asked this question, and let's ask it again. How do you think the Browns would have fared in games like this weekend? And I was really down on the Browns moving forward last week after that Kansas City Buffalo game, but this weekend gave me a lot more hope moving forward because this Browns team isn't as far away. We've talked about it before. If they can just get one or two more guys on that defensive line, patchwork, just not patchwork. They've got players in the secondary, so they need to draft depth behind them, and just add a receiver and figure out your tight end situation. And they're right there. They can compete with these teams this weekend. I mean, Jesus, I said it at the beginning of the show. The team in the Super Bowl is a team the Browns beat twice this year. Like, I guess I'm off the ledge on that. And I think the Browns are probably closer to a Super Bowl than I had given them credit for even 4 or 5 months ago, because a healthy Browns team can probably win the games that were played this weekend. I know they lost them this year, but they were really beat up. And I think getting healthy and adding some more pieces, they're a lot closer than I was giving them credit for.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to stop beating up the Bengals. You had fluke type plays in all three of your playoff games to get you to the Super Bowl. Once again, I'm not kudos to Evan McPherson for continuing to make these kicks, but I think the difference between the Bengals and the Browns are, like, it was clear, in my opinion. I know everybody wants to argue with me about it, blah blah blah. In my opinion, Kevin Stefanski knew he couldn't run the offense he wanted to run with Case Keenum playing week after week, which is why he played Baker unhealthy. If he has a backup that he actually trusts, Baker Mayfield, if he's not 100%, could sit in the offense, could still function. We saw what happened last year to the Cincinnati Bengals when Joe Burrow was hurt. Like, let's not pretend like the Bengals are running some elaborate, awesome, West Coast schemed offense. It's Joe Burrow hero ball. And that can come to an end real quick. And
I will give Cincinnati credit for Joe Mixon had 21 carries for 88 yards, which isn't, that doesn't pop off the page, but it's the 21 carries. And they played in a lot of second and third and longs, but the fact that they continued running the ball gave them the opportunity to kind of wear out that Kansas City defense as the game went on. And I mean, if you can do that when they're trying to make you one-dimensional and just sort of stick with it and get 4-ish yards a carry, I liked how Cincinnati did that. I normally don't give their coaching staff a lot of credit, but that was something that I noted as the game went on, that they kept trying to run the ball. And the commentators talked about it too. They stuck with it, and Burrow made the plays they needed to make. As far as things being fluky, like, I think this is going to be what the playoffs are moving forward. I think we're going to see more fluky stuff because we haven't seen anything this out of the blue since Baltimore went to the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco.
Right. But back to where it was going, though, like, if you take Joe Burrow out of the Bengals offense for 2 games this year, they don't go to the play.
I know, it's crazy.
like plain and simple. Like, now, hopefully for the Cincinnati Bengals fan base, their organization, and their future, they spend all of their resources for the rest of eternity on figuring out how to protect Joe Burrow. But I just don't feel it. Like, I think the Browns are a healthy Baker Mayfield, a playmaker, and a little depth on defense away from a Super Bowl run. Will they get to the Super Bowl? I don't know. Do I think those 3 things make them capable to compete in the games like we've seen outside of the Buffalo-Kansas City game? Yes.
Yeah, that's a good feeling to have now. Because if the Browns are healthy, they should be able to block. And, again, to just talk about what we saw this weekend, compare it to what we saw with the Browns, Baker Mayfield was under a lot of pressure this year, and I don't mean in terms of the media, his contract, and any of that stuff. I mean, in the passing game, the Browns' pass protection didn't hold up as well as it did last season. And when quarterbacks are pressured, they don't play as well. We saw it with Tom Brady last week. We saw it with Patrick Mahomes this weekend. We saw it really with all the quarterbacks this weekend. There were moments where the defensive pressure got to them and caused them to make mistakes. And maybe this trend is bigger than that. Maybe defenses have figured out a lot of these offensive concepts, and the league's going to go more defense-oriented. How that affects the league, we don't know, because there's still so much other new stuff going on with COVID. Who knows what that's going to look like next year. They're probably going to ignore it, so that might be a variable that's taken off the table. But the 17-game season, that's a big variable. We still don't know how it's going to play out year after year.
Yeah, and I will say also, I think a big part of what the Bengals were able to do was created by the fact that it seemed very obvious that Tyrann Mathieu was still suffering from a concussion.
Are you suggesting that the medical staff may have given him the okay to play, even though he wasn't 100% ready to play?
100%. I'm 100% stating that.
Well, it wouldn't be like the NFL to put players in physical jeopardy like that, would it?
No, not at all. They're all about player safety. But yeah, but it's just, kudos to both of these teams for doing what they had to do to get the Super Bowl. But I do agree. I think what we talked about earlier, I think that's definitely going to be something to look at next year is going to be, where's the team that's about 500 halfway through the season as opposed to a team that's undefeated? Because expecting a team to go 15-2, 16-1 is probably just not going to happen.
It'll be something that happens, but I don't think we're going to see what we saw there. I mean, for a lot of the last decade, there's been 2 or 3 teams that get to 13, 14 wins and just dominate for big chunks of the season. It looks like that's going to be much more rare going forward, especially when you look at the AFC, man. There's just so many teams that are good to very good that maybe the NFC can run off some Super Bowls here because of how much more difficult it is to get through the AFC schedule than the NFC schedule.
Yeah.
I
would agree. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, and that's probably where we should wrap up today. A programming note, we are going to be recording a basketball podcast here pretty soon. The season is well in its swing. The Cleveland Cavaliers have surprised me. They've been a great story, and there's a lot of other stuff to talk about in the NBA. So we'll definitely be covering that with our good friend Brandon Fenty and start looking at some of the championship bets, because we said last year in the NBA season what ended up coming true in the NFL season this year, which was there's a lot of those teams in the 3 to 10 range that have really good odds over plus 1,000 that you can bet on and get those to hit. Much like Jimmy's hoping to hit here with the LA Rams in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Jimmy, thank you for joining me to talk all of this, and we'll definitely talk a lot more about this Rams-Bengals game as we get closer to the Super Bowl.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
All right, and we want to thank you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore. Please drop a like or give us a comment if you like what you heard here today on No Broken Legs.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the bussin'. Representing